There always seems to be noisy yard work this time of year. An entire community is grateful for this ruckus. Primary ballots are now on their way to your home. That means political ads can't be far behind, which means a visit from you-know-who. Let's update what you've done for mothers and their babies in need. And it's been 2 decades since the Colorado Avalanche have advanced past the Western Conference Finals. A look at then and now. I'm Marshall Zellinger. Those were my highlights, and yet I'm still allowed to fill in for Kyle next. 158 days. Today marks 158 days since the worst day for many of our neighbors. 158 days ago, the Marshall Fire burned 1,000 homes and businesses. The last 158 days have been filled with loss and pain and grief. And today, for a family in Louisville, a new chapter begins. Here's Noel Brennan.
New life sprouts quietly.
Let's get this out.
Unlike the noise of a new build. Both are beautiful to see in Louisville.
I think this is great. This is a great first step for the community.
Justin Wood is a local builder who understands an excavator can be uplifting in more ways than one.
They're going to be really excited to see this happening.
158 days since the Marshall Fire left ashes behind. Ground is broken in Louisville on the first new home.
I wish I was there to see it.
Jessica Carson is miles away in Mexico,
Just north of Puerto Vallarta.
but she pictures what she's missing at home.
I want to see the rebirth. It kind of puts the devastation more in the rearview mirror and lets you focus on the possibility of what it could be again and what it will be again.
Jessica says her house on Larkspur Lane was the first in the neighborhood to burn, but it will be the first rebuilt.
So this gives us a great sense of pride to help them get their homes back that they lost.
Fire destroyed 550 homes in Louisville alone, but new life grows, and a neighborhood will too.
Can't get back all that was lost, but hopefully make it even better.
For Next, I'm Noel Brennan.
Wood Brothers Homes is building the first house on Larkspur Lane, and the company has about 15 new homes on their list in Louisville. You feel something different in the air today? It's part humidity, part election excitement. Primary ballots hit the mail today. And just like the general election, every active voter will get a mail-in ballot. That's almost 3.8 million of you. 45% of those, almost 1.7 million, are unaffiliated and can vote in either the Republican primary or the Democratic primary, not both. This is the third election cycle unaffiliateds can vote in the primaries. In 2018, a little more than 250,000 unaffiliateds voted. That year, there were 4 candidates running for governor in both parties. 62%, or 3 out of 5 unaffiliated voters, turned in Democratic ballots. In 2020, more than 500,000 unaffiliateds voted in the primary, and even more turned in Democratic ballots, almost 3 out of 4. That year was the U.S. Senate primary between Andrew Romanoff and eventual winner John Hickenlooper. This year could be the year unaffiliateds turn in more Republican ballots. After all, they do have more contested races. There are 2 Republican candidates running for governor, 2 running for U.S. Senate, 3 for Secretary of State, and there are several congressional districts with multiple Republican candidates. Ballots must be received back by 7 p.m. June 28th. Remember, if you get both ballots because you're unaffiliated, return one. If you send both of them back, neither will count. Now, one of the races I just mentioned, Secretary of State, is already getting the political ad treatment. A group called Defend Colorado has a few political ads targeting Republican candidate Tina Peters and Democratic candidate Jenna Griswold. And there's even one ad that combines the two, but it twists facts about one and opinion about the other. Super contrasted video, that grainy film look. It's political ad cliche bingo.
Colorado Secretary of State Jenna Griswold has grossly mismanaged her office and injected extreme partisan bias into our election process.
Get off your soapbox. These statements are opinion. The 2 articles highlighted on the screen are opinion pieces. editorials from the Colorado Springs Gazette and Colorado Politics. The first is really an editorial about reporting I did in 2019, when the Secretary of State and her staff issued a news release about a boycott of election training in Alabama after the state passed a restrictive ban on abortion access. Our reporting found that Griswold and her staff ran the news release by Planned Parenthood for edits before sending it out. The statements made in this part of the political ad are based on other people's opinions.
County Clerk Tina Peters is just as bad. Peters was just indicted by a grand jury for election tampering and is facing 7 felony charges.
These are facts, with just one slight caveat. Peters, the Republican Mesa County clerk, was indicted for election equipment tampering, not tampering with the results of an election. As we have extensively reported, Peters faces 10 charges, and as the ad states, 7 of them are felonies. The indictment said Peters had county security cameras turned off and violated state election rules to get a non-employee access to Mesa County's election equipment during an upgrade of the computers. A judge has barred Peters from overseeing her own county's 2022 elections. Peters also has a separate court case for improperly recording a court hearing with her iPad. That would sound familiar because of a cell phone video that appears to show Peters kick at a member of law enforcement. Speaking of Peters, we have a photo to share with you that we'd like to present without comment. It's from the Western Conservative Summit in Aurora this weekend. She posted it to social media, kicking it with local law enforcement. Also, at the Western Conservative Summit this weekend, we heard from Heidi Ganahl, Republican candidate for Colorado's governor. After her opening statement, moderator, former Republican District Attorney George Brockler, asked specific questions, like how to keep kids safe in schools. 2 of Ganahl's talking points are crime rates and kid safety. So see if you can hear the how in her answer.
This is a deep, deep issue that goes back to faith and family and community and reconnecting with people and curing our mental health crisis. People are in despair right now, especially our kids. So we've got to address that. But we also have to create standards of care so that schools know what's expected of them and then measure against those standards of care so that parents can hold the schools accountable and hold me accountable as governor to track and make sure that the resources are being spent the right way and that we're actually moving the needle to keep our kids safer.
The standards of care could be a what, but how? It's the type of follow-up we'd like to ask, but Ganahl has refused our request to sit down for a one-on-one interview ahead of the primary election. Her opponent, Greg Lopez, has not. He was also at the Western Conservative Summit, and during his Q&A, he answered the same question about keeping kids safe in schools. He proposed a few solutions that may or may not be in his power as governor.
As governor, I'm going to look at the state budget. There's at least 30 to 40% fraud, waste, and abuse in the state budget that we have today with a $40 billion. You know, I'm going to reallocate some of that money, and I am going to put a police officer in every single school across the state of Colorado. But we're also going to deal with mental health. Mental health is a big issue for us, and we need to address that as well.
Quick sidebar. The governor does not control local police departments or sheriff's offices or school districts or their budgets. Kyle sat down with Greg Lopez before ballots hit the mail. You can watch that full interview on the next YouTube page at the link right there. We've got an entire playlist dedicated to election 2022 coverage. And as you start to receive your ballots, we also have a voter guide on our homepage at 9news.com. Because of the national baby formula shortage, families and caregivers have been more reliant on donor milk, but the need for that milk is not new. There are the NICU babies who need it to live. There are the babies in the community who cannot tolerate formula. And there are the low-income families that need extra help. Through this past week's Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign, you raised more than $32,000 for the Denver-based Mother's Milk Bank. This nonprofit will use these funds for outreach and another project they've started working on. It's their emergency assistance fund for low-income families who need help getting the essentials. And that could be car seats, finishing nurseries, or even baby formula, if it makes sense. We'll pick a new nonprofit to highlight after that slate every week in your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. Kyle will be here on Wednesday to tell you about the group we're highlighting next. Following the Boulder King super shooting, state lawmakers gave cities and counties more power to make decisions about guns. Local lawmakers in Boulder County are about to take the next steps. In Greenwood Village, it is legal to sell guns out of your home, at least for now. Some residents are trying to get that changed. Plus, Colorado looks a little different from the last time the Colorado Avalanche were one win away from the Stanley Cup Finals. Let's take a look back next. Lawmakers in Boulder County will consider some of the strictest gun laws in Colorado tomorrow. These are local city councils, Boulder, Louisville, and Lafayette, and the Board of Trustees in Superior. Those proposed ordinances include a ban on assault rifles, a ban on concealed carry on city property, a ban on ghost guns, and a 10-day waiting period for any gun purchases. Gun stores would also have to post signage warnings about the dangers of guns. Not all gun stores are created equal. Some are in strip malls, some are big box locations, and in Greenwood Village, there is one in someone's home. That's Tomcat Tactical Firearms in the business listings. It's run out of a home in a residential neighborhood at the end of a cul-de-sac, actually. Not everyone in Greenwood Village is thrilled to be neighbors with a home gun shop. More than 200 people signed a petition in favor of a city ordinance in Greenwood Village that would make residential gun sales illegal.
I believe that we shouldn't be able to sell from a home anything like an AR-15 or a 9mm or any weapon with which you can shoot 100 rounds a second or 100 rounds in 15 seconds. It's not necessary for home businesses to sell weapons of death, period.
That's Martin Berliner, a lawyer who's lived in Greenwood Village for decades. He was one of the residents who first circulated the petition for this proposed ordinance. Tonight, Greenwood Village City Council will hear public comment on it, and Berliner is planning to be there to speak. In the months since he set out to make this ordinance a law, City Council has changed it so that it would ban new gun shops from opening, but it would not close down the one that's already operating. And Berliner says that doesn't make him or his neighbors feel safe.
Number one, my acceptance of the ordinance does not mean that I wouldn't like to see all residential sales prohibited. That's number one. Number two, while the ordinance is a start, I think it's deficient in the sense that, number one, it doesn't define what firearms mean. It doesn't prevent someone from selling components so somebody else could build their own firearm from pieces that are sold by the business. And third, it doesn't prevent the sale of ammunition to be used in the firearm. And I think that should be done as well.
Public comment begins in about 45 minutes, and Greenwood Village, I'm going to get it right one of these times, Greenwood Village City Council will consider the public comment before potentially moving forward.
Pretty active afternoon across Colorado, especially in northern Colorado through Fort Collins and Greeley. Folks out there dealing with downpours, a lot of lightning. And then now in Castle Rock, we're starting to see some pretty strong storms beginning to bubble up. Downtown Denver still looking pretty good, but those ominous skies still building up into the high country. We have been monitoring a few severe storms, those primarily into southeastern Colorado, where we do have a severe thunderstorm watch in place until 10 o'clock tonight. Large hail, damaging winds, certainly a possibility. We'll zoom in across far northeastern Colorado, still pretty active around Sterling through Akron, Flagler too, and then heading out into Kansas, you will be monitoring a few more storms. You can see just to the south of the Denver metro area, rolling off the foothills and the hogback through Douglas and Elbert counties, possibly some small hail embedded in these storms. Otherwise, just look for some brief downpours, a little bit of lightning, and certainly some gusty winds. By about 9-10 o'clock, most of the action is off to the eastern plains, and then overnight, everything moves out. 8 a.m. tomorrow, mix of sun and clouds to kick off your Tuesday, and then here we go again. The storms are going to be a bit more isolated tomorrow, few and far between, but if you live off to the eastern side of the state, I will be keeping a close eye out there because they do have the potential for becoming severe, especially once they kind of gain some momentum and push into Nebraska and Kansas, where we have a slight to enhanced risk for potentially seeing some tornadoes tomorrow afternoon. That marginal threat is going to be just to the east of the Denver area. Temps return tomorrow to the lower 80s around the metro area, 70s and 80s off to the eastern plains, still sizzling out to the west. Storms will continue pretty much each and every afternoon, and then we're back into the 90s, the summer heat in action this weekend.
Plenty of people bike up and down Lookout Mountain. But the most Colorado thing we've seen today is a man who said one wheel, that's just fine. Our resident cyclist, Steve Steger, tweeted, "Name something that angers drivers more than cyclists riding two abreast." He got this video in response, clearly not two cyclists riding two abreast, but a guy descending Lookout Mountain on a unicycle. The driver said it was so amazing she had no business being angered. Anyone who can descend Lookout Mountain with one wheel and the help of gravity deserves our respect. Let's see the video go the other way, though. Remember, if you see something that's so Colorado, send it our way, like the guy going uphill. I want to see that. You can email next@9news.com or tweet it using the hashtag HeyNext. Get ready to get into the Wayback Machine with us. The Avs' success on the ice is making me nostalgic for life 20 years ago. Well, 21 years ago. What's different? What's the same? Next. We're not like other shows, you know this, but hear me out. We don't bring you sports in the usual sports way. We bring you sports in the weird, wonky way that's unique to Next. You may have heard the Avs have a chance to make it to the Stanley Cup Finals tonight, and that had us reflecting back on the last time the playoffs went this well for the Avs.
At this point, but the Avs certainly making sure they clear it around the wall.
The last time the Colorado Avalanche were in the Western Conference Finals was 20 years ago, 2002. But we lost to the Detroit Red Wings in 7.
The final score for Game 7 is 7-0 for the Detroit Red Wings. Stay tuned for the Avalanche.
So let's look at the last time we were in the Western Conference Finals and won.
Shot saved by he got score! The Avs are going to play for the Stanley Cup!
That was the year before, 2001. I was still in college. Joe Sakic wore an Avs sweater. Now it's a suit. Mile High Stadium was about to give way to new Mile High Stadium. The city of Centennial, where the Avs practice, had just become a city. And the arena where the Avs play was 2 years old and named for a drink. Now it's named for the cup the drink goes in. The median home price in the state was about $167,000. Gas prices were, well, let's just say they started with a 1. Lady Marmalade. Is it marmalade or marmalade? Lady Marmalade was number 1 on the charts, which is fitting since Moulin Rouge is about to open at the DCPA this week. And Blues Traveler played Red Rocks on the 4th of July. Wait, that's still happening this year. That's the hook, brings you back to the Avs.
He scores!
Back in the Western Conference Finals. As a stats nerd, I appreciate producer Megan Doyle for finding this. 7 teams since 1987 have made it to the Stanley Cup Final with just 2 losses in the first 3 rounds. I don't say that for any particular reason, just food for thought. Just so you know, hockey playoff games go 2.5, 3 hours. This show is only on for a few more minutes. I'll keep you posted if either team scores, which leads me to a tease about a sign and an update on a game that I'm watching over there. It's a sign that we can't tell you what to do, even if it's for your health. Kathy spotted this sign in a public bathroom over the weekend. Employees must wash hands. You should too, but I am not your mother. I'm not your mother either, but the sign is right. If the pandemic has taught us anything, it's the importance of good hygiene. When you see that a sign that speaks to you, snap a photo or video and send it to us. Again, email next@9news.com or tweet it with the hashtag HeyNext. And first, before I get to the Avs update, I have to go on my soapbox myself about an air dryer in the bathroom. Is that really the best we can do? I know I'm going to hear from people who say we're going to cut too many trees if we have paper towels, but there's something gross about an air dryer. 1-0 Avs. You can change it as soon as I'm done talking in 10 seconds. We hope to look into the prices of Avs tickets if they continue past today. That'll be my next challenge. See you next time.